when a man finds himself abandoned, stripped of what he thought was certain, left standing in the silence of his own solitude.
There's something inside you right now that's bigger than your current circumstances, bigger than your current schedule, bigger than your current habits, your current circle, your current fears. And you know it, you felt it in quiet moments, in those flashes of insight, in those long stretches of discontent, where you start to wonder if the life you are living is the life you're meant for. That sense, that pull, that there's more. That's not fantasy. That's not delusion. That's your potential talking. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it whispers, it nudges. It taps you on the shoulder and says, "Wake up, I'm still here." And the truth is, most people never unlock it, not because they don't have it, but because they never stop long enough to recognize it. They're too busy, too distracted, too conditioned by the noise of the world to hear the signal within. They follow routines they didn't design. They obey limits they never tested. They chase approval from people who've already settled. But that's not you. Not anymore. You wouldn't be here if you hadn't already decided, somewhere deep down, that you're not going to spend the rest of your life wondering what you could have become. You're ready to find out. You're ready to dig beneath the excuses, the hesitation, the overthinking. You're ready to go beneath the surface. See, potential isn't just talent. It's not just what you're good at. It's not about being gifted. Potential is capacity. It's possibility. It's the space between where you are and where you could be if you stopped holding back. It's the unused strength, the buried ideas, the locked up energy. And the only way to find it is to go looking for it, not someday now. Because life doesn't wait. The clock is ticking whether you move or not. And if you don't take control, someone else will. Someone else will decide your value. Someone else will define your identity. Someone else will write your story. And you'll wake up one day wondering how it got away from you. But the good news, you're still holding the pen. You still get to choose what this next chapter looks like. And it begins not with a miracle, but with a decision. The decision to stop coasting, the decision to stop wishing, the decision to stop hiding. You don't need a new identity. You need a new standard. You don't need a lucky break. You need daily commitment. You don't need someone to rescue you. You need to remember who you are and who you've always been beneath the layers of distraction and doubt. Because deep down you already know what you're capable of. You've seen glimpses of it. You've tasted it in moments of clarity and flow. And now it's time to make that state your new normal. It's time to pull potential from theory into practice, from concept into commitment, from wishing into working and unlocking it. That's not magic. It's not a mystery. It's a process, a repeatable one, a path. You can walk one step at a time with clarity, with intention, with discipline. 7 steps. 7 decisions, 7 layers that once peeled back will reveal what's been inside you all along. The first step to unlocking the hidden potential within you is awareness. Not passive awareness, not shallow recognition, but deep, active, honest awareness of where you are and who you've been. Because you cannot change what you won't confront. You cannot rise above what you refuse to see. And if you stay unaware, you stay stuck. Most people are not stuck because of circumstance. They're stuck because they've stopped looking at themselves. Clearly, they've created a version of themselves that's easier to accept, but it's not accurate. It's a version built on past experiences, on other people's opinions, on outdated patterns that no longer serve them. You cannot build a powerful life on a blurry foundation. You need clarity about your habits, about your beliefs, about your identity, about the things you're doing that are either pulling you forward or pulling you back. Because potential doesn't live in fantasy, it lives in truth. And truth starts with the mirror, not the mirror that flatters, the mirror that reflects, that shows you exactly what's there. Not to shame you, not to make you feel behind, but to wake you up, to give you data, to help you see what's actually running your life. How do you spend your time? Not what you say, but what do you actually do? Where does your attention go when no one's managing you? What patterns do you run when you're stressed? What stories do you repeat when you fail? What do you reach for when things go quiet? That's awareness. And most people don't want to sit in that reflection. They'd rather escape into distraction, into entertainment, into busyness. Stillness is confronting, but the truth is, the stillness is your starting line. If you can't sit with who you are, you can't change it. You need to know your defaults, the way you speak to yourself when you fall short, the beliefs you slip into when plans fall apart, the identity you revert to when no one's looking. Because until you become aware of it, you can't interrupt it. You can't replace what you haven't named. Awareness is painful at first because it forces you to see the gap between your intention and your behavior. It shows you the ways you've been lying to yourself. It reveals the parts of your life you've let drift. But that pain is not punishment. It's an invitation. It's access. Because once you see it, you can change it. Once you name the pattern, you can rewrite it. Once you become aware of your triggers, your responses, your default emotions, you can shift. Not because you're trying harder, because you're living consciously. And when you live consciously, everything changes. You stop running on autopilot. You stop repeating yesterday. You stop blaming luck or timing or people because you've realized everything begins with you. Not in a way that creates guilt, in a way that gives you power. If you've been drifting, the first step is not to move faster, it's to wake up. It's to become deeply aware of what you've been avoiding, of what you've accepted as normal, that isn't serving you anymore, of what's present in your routine that's keeping you small. You want to unlock potential. Start by seeing where you're leaking it, where your words don't match your habits, where your standards don't match your actions, where your excuses have become identity. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. You don't need to fix everything overnight. You just need to see it clearly, to stop sugarcoating it, to stop spinning it, to sit with it, to write it down, to name the patterns, to ask, is this who I want to be 5 years from now? And if the answer is no, you've just found the starting line. Awareness creates choice. Once you're aware, you get to decide. Keep it or change it, repeat it or rewrite it, numb it or face it, run from it or rise through it. But until you're aware, you don't get to choose. You're reacting, you're repeating, you're reliving your past and calling it a personality. And that's not who you are. That's just what you've learned to become. But you can unlearn it. You can rewire it. You can reshape it. But only after you've seen it. Because you cannot change what you won't admit. So be honest, brutally honest, not cruel, but clear. And then be kind to yourself. Not with indulgence, but with responsibility. You saw the truth. Now do something about it. Start shifting. Start asking better questions. Start choosing better inputs. Start stepping away from what numbs and toward what sharpens. The second step to unlocking the hidden potential within you is to challenge your beliefs. Because beliefs are not facts. Beliefs are conclusions. And most of the ones holding you back weren't even created by you. They were inherited. They were repeated. They were absorbed. And without ever questioning them, you let them become the blueprint of your life. From the time you were young, you were being programmed. Not maliciously, but consistently. You watched the way people around you handled failure, how they spoke about money, how they carried themselves in moments of stress, what they said about possibility, about people like you, about what was possible for someone from your background, your education, your circumstances. And because you were young and your mind was open, you accepted those messages. You accepted them as reality, as structure, as limitation. And those beliefs, they became rules. Invisible rules that now govern how far you reach, how hard you try, how big you dream. The problem is most people never go back and question those rules. They build their lives inside of invisible cages. And even when the door is open, they don't walk out. Because the belief says you don't belong out there. The belief says you're not ready. The belief says this is as good as it gets. You don't break out of that by willpower alone. You break out by challenging the belief. You ask, where did I learn this? Who told me this was true? Have I ever tested this? Is this a truth or just a tradition? And never interrupted? And once you start asking those questions, everything opens. You start to realize that most of your limits were optional. Most of your doubts were adopted. Most of your ceilings were artificial. And the moment you stop believing them, they stop controlling you. Because a belief is nothing more than a practiced thought. You thought it long enough, repeated it often enough, experienced it consistently enough that it became a lens. And now, you don't just have the thought, you see the world through it. But you can swap that lens. You can update the operating system. You can start telling yourself something new, not blindly, not with fake positivity, but with intention, with choice, with discipline, with evidence. You start by identifying the limiting belief, and then you challenge it. You test it. You build a case against it. You gather proof of moments when it wasn't true. You stop feeding it with repetition, and instead you start building a new belief. And this is where most people stop, i.e., they uncover the belief, but they don't replace it. And if you don't replace it, the old one grows back. It finds its way back into your mind in moments of stress, of doubt, of fatigue. So you don't just remove, you rewire. You build a new belief, the same way you built the old one, with repetition, with emotion, with reinforcement. You speak it, you act on it, you find evidence for it, and eventually it becomes your new lens, your new baseline, your new truth. And with that new belief, you start moving different. You stop hesitating. You stop playing small. You stop second-guessing your instinct, because your mind isn't fighting you anymore. It's backing you. It's supporting the new identity. That's how you rise. You don't wait for the world to change how it sees you. You change how you see yourself. And that change inside out is what unlocks the next level, because now the lid is off. Now you're not negotiating with permission, you're moving with clarity. But it has to be earned. You earn it by showing up every day and acting like the person you're becoming, not the one you've been, even when it feels foreign. Especially when it feels foreign. Because every time you act in alignment with the new belief, the old one loses strength. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. There will be resistance. Your mind will want to go back to familiar, because familiar and fulfilling are not the same thing. And if you want to grow, you have to risk leaving what's familiar. So you risk, you step, you speak differently, you show up differently, you move differently, not because it's easy, but because it's aligned, because you've chosen to believe something new, and that belief is unlocking doors the old one never could. The third step to unlocking the hidden potential within you is to build identity through action. Because you don't become who you want to be by thinking about it. You become it by behaving like it consistently, repeatedly, intentionally, until the actions become normal and the normal becomes you. This is the bridge. Most people never cross. They discover the idea, they get excited, they make the vision board, but they never shift their behavior. They wait for their identity to change so they can take action. But it doesn't work that way. You don't act because you believe. You start believing because you act. You don't wake up with confidence and then move. You move and earn confidence. You don't wait to feel ready. You move and become ready. Every action you take casts a vote for who you're becoming. Every time you show up, every time you follow through, every time you choose discipline over comfort, that's a vote. And the more votes you cast, the more you start to believe, this is who I am. Now, it's not about faking it, it's about proving it to yourself. You don't need external validation, you need internal evidence. And the fastest way to collect that evidence is to act like the future version of you right now. Ask yourself, if I already was the person I want to be, how would I behave today? What time would I get up? How would I carry myself? What decisions would I make? What would I stop tolerating? And then you do that, not once, not twice, until its natural identity isn't discovered. It's built, it's created through behavior. Through consistency, through choosing the higher road, the longer game, the tougher decision, because that's what your future self would do. And yes, it's awkward at first. Your current habits will resist it. Your environment might not support it. Your friends might not recognize you anymore. But that's the cost of transformation. You don't get to upgrade without letting go of what's outdated. People say change is hard, but what's harder is staying stuck in an old identity that no longer fits. What's harder is waking up every day and pretending that your dreams don't matter. What's harder is living misaligned year after year. So instead of waiting to feel like it, you act into it. You act like the confident one. You act like the focused one. You act like the disciplined one. You act like the leader, the writer, the athlete, the artist, the builder. Whatever your future demands, you start moving like it today. And you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to be consistent. You just have to do it enough that the new behavior starts to feel familiar, that it starts to become your default, that it feels weirder not to do it than to do it. That's how transformation works. It's not a sudden flip, it's a gradual shift through behavior, through habit, through repetition. And every day you follow through, even if it's messy, you're becoming. You're not waiting on motivation anymore. You're not looking for someone to remind you of your goals. You've taken full ownership of who you want to become, and your calendar reflects it. Your conversations reflect it. Your environment reflects it. That level of alignment, it's rare, but it's real, and it's available to anyone who is willing to stop saying someday and start asking what now. Anyone who's willing to stop admiring potential and start acting it out. You don't have to announce your new identity. You don't have to post about it. You just have to live it. You just have to build evidence quietly, consistently, and let your habits do the talking. Let your presence carry the message. The fourth step to unlocking the hidden potential within you is to embrace challenge as the training ground, not as punishment, but preparation. Because nothing will expose your potential faster than pressure, and nothing will refine it faster than struggle. Everyone wants growth, but no one wants discomfort. Everyone wants breakthrough, but no one wants resistance. But here's the truth. Your potential doesn't emerge in ease. It's pulled out of you when you're forced to reach for more than what's familiar. Comfort keeps you consistent with who you've been. Challenge pulls you into who you could be. It stretches you, it shakes you, it tests the systems you've built and the beliefs you've clung to. And every time you choose to lean in, instead of run, you evolve. You want to find out what you're made of. Step into difficulty. Do the thing that scares you. Commit to something that's bigger than your current ability. Say yes to the kind of pressure that forces you to grow, not because you're ready, but because you're willing. The more you avoid challenge, the more you avoid growth. The more you run from discomfort, the longer you delay your breakthrough. Because what you call pressure, life calls preparation. And it's not there to break you, it's there to shape you. Every challenge is an invitation to think clearer, to move with intention, to find your edge, to let go of what no longer fits, to see what happens when the old identity starts to crumble and something stronger begins to emerge. And the strongest people you know, the ones who walk with confidence, the ones who carry weight with ease, the ones who seem to move through storms with clarity, they weren't born like that. They were built through repetition, through challenge, through doing what most people avoid. You don't need to search for hardship, but you do need to stop hiding from it. You do need to stop labeling every difficulty as a sign to retreat. What if it's not a sign to back off? What if it's a signal that you're exactly where you need to be? Growth never feels like growth. When you're in the middle of it, it feels like tension, like friction, like frustration. But the longer you sit in it, the more you let the discomfort do its job, the more you start to rise. You build capacity, you become more resilient. You think sharper. You start to see that pain is not the enemy, it's the tool. It reveals what needs to be fixed, what needs to be strengthened, what you've been avoiding. And that insight, that's priceless. You don't grow in theory, you grow in practice. In the real-life tests that no one prepared you for, in the moments that interrupt your comfort, in the situations that feel unfair, unpredictable, overwhelming. And those are the moments where you find your edge. But most people don't stay long enough to get the lesson they want out too soon. They want relief before results. They want the fire to stop before it finishes refining them, so they miss the transformation. They miss the identity upgrade. But you're here to stay. You're here to breathe through the challenge, to extract the lesson, to let it make you deeper, not bitter, stronger, not colder, sharper, not harder. This challenge isn't here to destroy you. It's here to unlock you. And the longer you sit with that truth, the more unstoppable you become, because you no longer fear pressure. You trust it. You no longer panic when things get hard. You get focused. You stop asking for the challenge to go away, and you start asking, who do I need to become to rise through this? That mindset, that's rare. That's resilient. That's transformational. Because now nothing is wasted. Every struggle becomes data. Every delay becomes development. Every setback becomes a signal to tighten your habits, adjust your posture, and move again. And you don't have to love the pain, but you do have to respect the process. You do have to keep showing up when it's not glamorous, when no one's cheering, when the results are still distant. You stay. You keep breathing. You keep working. And you trust that the challenge is making you stronger than you were before it arrived. The fifth step to unlocking the hidden potential within you is to align your environment with your future. Because no matter how strong your mindset is, your environment is speaking to you all day long. It's shaping you, nudging you, influencing your habits, training your nervous system to either stay the same or stretch forward. Most people underestimate this. They think they can will their way into growth while surrounding themselves with comfort, distraction, and old energy. But you can't plant a new identity in the same soil that kept the old one alive. You need a different atmosphere. If your goal is transformation, then your environment has to match. You have to curate your inputs, who you're around, what you listen to, what conversations you allow, what energy you tolerate, because every one of those things is either watering your potential or draining it. You cannot grow into your future while staying emotionally attached to what's keeping you average. You can't keep holding on to every relationship out of history. You can't keep tolerating a schedule that doesn't respect your vision. You can't keep exposing yourself to low standards and expect to live at a high one. This is where alignment becomes non-negotiable. You stop designing your life around comfort. You stop protecting your habits. You start asking a better question: does this support who I'm becoming? And if it doesn't, you adjust. You let go. You upgrade. And that upgrade, it's hard because it means you'll have to make decisions that don't always feel easy. But if you want to unlock potential, you have to create an environment that expects it from you, that reflects it back to you, that supports it. When your own belief is shaky, you build that environment by being intentional about your time, about your space, about your standards. You don't wait until you feel different. You change the world around you to remind yourself of who you're becoming. You clean the clutter, you simplify your inputs. You audit your social circle. You pay attention to what makes you sharp and what makes you small. You stop justifying mediocrity and start elevating everything that touches your daily rhythm. Your environment trains your nervous system. If it's chaotic, you stay reactive. If it's disciplined, you build peace. If it's distracted, your potential gets fragmented. But if it's aligned, clean, focused, designed, you start operating at a different level. And alignment isn't accidental. It's built through boundaries, through decisions, through choosing what you will and will not allow into your physical, mental, emotional space. You don't become your highest self by chance. You become it by choice. So you create an atmosphere that supports that choice. You get around people who challenge you, not just compliment you. You spend time with those who remind you of your potential, not your past. You pour energy into relationships that hold you accountable to your standards, not ones that keep you comfortable in your excuses. You change your schedule. You carve space for what matters. You stop saying yes to things just because you don't want to disappoint others. You prioritize your future over their temporary opinion, because when your environment aligns with your vision, your effort becomes exponential. You're no longer fighting upstream. You're being supported by everything around you. And that's when you gain momentum. You don't have to think as hard about showing up. You don't have to remind yourself every morning why you're committed. You just live inside a structure that supports it and the consistency you've been craving. It starts to feel natural role. This isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about getting honest about where your space is holding you back and then doing the work to shift it one decision at a time. Because a better life doesn't start with better luck. It starts with better alignment. So you take inventory. What needs to go? What needs to grow? What needs to be cleaned, protected, added, removed, refined? You ask the hard questions, and then you stop waiting for permission to build a space that serves your vision. You just build it. The sixth step to unlocking the hidden potential within you is to master your internal dialogue. Because no matter how talented you are, if the voice in your head is tearing you down, you will keep shrinking to match it. The most important conversation you will ever have is the one you're having with yourself. You don't rise into new levels by accident. You rise by reinforcing new beliefs, new patterns, new language, not just out loud, but internally. In the quiet moments, in the middle of the storm, in the heat of the decision, that's when your voice matters most. Most people carry an inner critic that's louder than their inner coach. They don't even realize it's there. It's just been on repeat for years. You're not ready. You always mess this up. Why even try? These aren't facts, they're echoes, old programming. Recycled doubt disguised as truth. And that voice, it's not harmless. It becomes identity. It shapes posture. It dictates risk tolerance. It limits your capacity long before life ever tested. Because if you are already losing the internal battle, you'll avoid the external one. But you can change that. You can train your internal voice to support your future, not sabotage it. You don't silence the critic, you override it. You stop arguing with the negative thoughts and you start rehearsing the right ones. You speak from your values, not your feelings, from your intention, not your insecurity, from your identity, not your history. You start telling yourself what your future requires, not what your past expects. And it's not fake, it's not delusional, it's deliberate. It's disciplined, it's built one repetition at a time. You notice the voice, you pause, you reframe, you say, that's not who I am anymore, and you speak something better. I am in process. I am growing. I'm showing up. I can do this. You replace judgment with instruction instead of I'm failing. You say, what's the lesson instead of this always happens? You say, what can I shift? You stop assigning identity to your mistakes and you start assigning purpose to them. That shift in language, it compounds. It builds belief. Not overnight, but over time. And as that belief grows, your behavior shifts. Your posture rises. Your risk expands. Your consistency deepens. Because now you're not working against your own mind, you're working with it. You coach yourself through hard moments. You stay centered in chaos. You choose language that reinforces commitment, not comfort. You speak to yourself like someone you respect, like someone worth showing up for, because you are. And every time you repeat that pattern, you reinforce the identity. I'm disciplined. I follow through. I do the hard thing. I am calm under pressure. These aren't just statements. They're anchors. They hold you steady when everything else starts to shake. And they don't just shape your mood, they shape your life. Because your inner dialogue becomes your outer behavior. Your outer behavior becomes your habits. Your habits shape your results, and your results reinforce your belief. It's a cycle. And you're either running it with intention or letting it run you by default, but either way it's happening. So take control, become intentional, choose your words carefully, because you're always listening. You can't talk yourself into mediocrity every day and expect to live an extraordinary life. You can't talk yourself down and expect to lead powerfully. You can't carry self-doubt on repeat and expect to take bold action. You have to shift the story. So from now on, you build the habit, you audit the thoughts, you correct the language, you challenge the narrative. You speak to yourself like someone who matters, like someone whose life is worth building, like someone who has more potential than they've been accessing, and who is finally ready to unlock it. The seventh step to unlocking the hidden potential within you is to move with urgency, not panic, not rush, but urgency. The kind of urgency that comes from understanding time is not promise. The kind that comes from knowing potential without action is just wasted opportunity. There is a version of you that exists on the other side of now, not someday, not after you feel ready. Not once. Everything's lined up perfectly right now, but you won't meet that version by waiting. You won't meet it by hoping, you meet it by moving. Most people miss their moment, not because they lack talent, but because they were too casual with their timing. They assumed they'd get another shot. They told themselves they had time. They let the calendar lie to them. And while they were waiting, someone else was building. Urgency isn't stress, it's clarity. It's a deep understanding that your life matters, that your potential matters, that the window doesn't stay open forever. That while you're putting things off, the gap is growing. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to close that gap. You don't get to decide how long your opportunity will last, but you do get to decide how fast you respond to it. And every day you hesitate, you teach your brain that delay is okay, that waiting is safe, that comfort is more valuable than growth. But when you move with urgency, everything shifts. Your focus sharpens. Your excuses start to sound weaker. Your vision gets louder. Because now, you're not just thinking about your future, you're building it. And you don't wait for motivation, you don't wait for energy. You move first. You train your system to act. When it doesn't feel convenient, you stop letting your feelings decide your pace. You stop confusing, I'm not ready with, it's not time. Because the truth is, you're not always going to feel ready. But the only way to become ready is to go anyway, to step anyway, to start anyway. And when you do, you create momentum. And momentum gives you evidence, and that evidence builds belief. You want to believe in yourself? Start moving. Stop planning endlessly. Stop waiting to be perfect. Perfection is just procrastination with better par. Start with what you have, where you are now. Because what you can't afford is another month of hesitation, another quarter of waiting, another year of looking back and realizing you could have been further. You don't need another talk. You need traction. And traction requires movement. This isn't about recklessness. It's about responsibility. About realizing that your life is your responsibility. That your future is your responsibility. That if you want to change, no one's coming to knock on your door and drag you into it. You go, you lead, you move. And you move without apology, without needing everyone to understand, without needing the conditions to be ideal. Because urgency isn't about being dramatic, it's about being committed to your vision, to your discipline, to your next level. And when you live that way, when urgency becomes part of your rhythm, you stop letting small things slow you down. You stop letting opinions take you off track. You stop letting fear choose your speed. You lead, you step, you execute. Potential without urgency is a shelf full of unopened gifts, and life doesn't owe you the time to unwrap them slowly. So you make the decision, you pick up the pace, not chaotically but intentionally, not frantically but with purpose, because the future doesn't wait, and the longer you delay, the more you have to rebuild. But the sooner you move, the more ground you cover, the more clarity you gain, the more of your own capacity you discover. You've just walked through 7 steps, not quick tips, not motivational fluff, but real actionable steps to unlock what's already inside you, because that's the truth, it's already there. You don't need to find yourself, you need to return to yourself. You don't need to be rescued, you need to be reminded. You've been told to wait, to play small, to stay realistic. But the reality is this: your potential is not intimidated by your past. It's not limited by your present. It's only waiting on your permission to come alive. And now you've got the keys. You've got awareness to see what's real. You've got the clarity to challenge your old beliefs. You've got the tools to build identity through action. You've got the mindset to embrace challenge as your training ground. You've got the power to align your environment. You've got the language to speak life over your future. And you've got the urgency to move now. So what's next? It's not more theory. It's not waiting for another breakthrough. It's doing the work, taking the step, making the shift, building the habit, repeating the pattern, showing up over and over. Because potential without execution is regret waiting to happen. And if you felt that before, if you've lived with the quiet tension of knowing you're meant for more, but not moving on it, you don't need to stay there. You get to write something new. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you've always been, underneath the fear, the distractions, the self-doubt. It's about stripping off what's fake and stepping into what's real. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start building, start believing, start backing yourself. Not loudly, but consistently. Not once, but daily. And when it gets hard, because it will, you come back to this. You remember why you started. You remember who you're becoming. You remind yourself that discomfort is not the enemy, it's the path. You don't quit, you breathe, you step, you lead, because the world doesn't benefit from you playing small. It doesn't grow from your hesitation. It doesn't rise from your silence. It shifts when you show up fully, authentically, without apology. So this is your permission slip. Or maybe it's your reminder that you've always been more than you've allowed, that it's not too late, that now is still right on time, that if you commit to the process, the results will follow. You've got the map, you've got the fire, you've got the capacity. The only thing left is the decision to move, to step, to rise.